So this is going to be basically they called it the first mission. I don't know if it truly is it definitely feels like the first mission given your reduced role as you're the chauffeur. But they said this is the first mission of the game, and it's not going to be the full mission. They've cut some stuff out to spare you some story details and obviously speed it along. But go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that if you're a super Bond fan that you're going to recognize immediately is that this car is not an Aston Martin. This is a Jaguar.
There will be Martins, though. There will be Aston Martin.
And that's my point is they have put Jaguar in Bond movies before, but always returned to an Aston Martin. And I think this game, being that it's 007 becoming 007, is going to show how he got his love for Aston Martin. And I think that's going to happen in this mission.
I also appreciate your use of the British pronunciation of Jaguar as opposed to Jaguar.
As we got a nice view of the boot right there.
There you go. Indeed.
Yeah.
So, and as I'll just let this play because this is just a little casual drive. So we'll get a chance to kind of go over some details and stuff. Let me mute that on my end.
One of the things I wanted to say as we're watching this right here, in so many games, and it's like, okay, you click to go to your next mission, and you're just magically there. So one of the things and that might happen in this.
I would say I think there will be some degree of that for sure as you're globetrotting.
But the fact that we are driving to our first mission, I think is awesome. And I know you brought up something about the HUD.
Yeah,
but this might not have a HUD, man. I mean, it might not have a HUD.
So that was one thing I thought about. So later we spoilers, there will be more driving. But later in this mission, there will be another section of driving, and you'll see where it kind of like has a diamond or something that marks the point that you're supposed to be driving toward. Now, this doesn't have that, but it could be for a few reasons. One, like you said, there may just not be a HUD display. Could be a thing where you just hold a button. Could be a thing where there is a HUD display. They just don't want to show it because it's going to get in the way of this.
Yeah.
Or it could also just be that, much like I'm sure it's going to be a lot like Uncharted, and that whenever it would have sections like this,
there's
only one way you can go. You're just going forward, like it's
this one did.
Yeah. Like there was a thing that went to the right, but I don't know if that would even be an option. So anyways, as they go into this mission, as we said, James Bond, like Jay mentioned, you're not 007 yet. You're just James Bond. You're some dude that's brash that they basically say he's a bullet that, doesn't have a target. And so you're kind of getting this chance, but you've been told you're the driver. You have these other two agents that are with you, and you are to stay with the car. So you're not Bond, James Bond. You're just James. Stay with the car. So I still do hate the name Last Light. I still hate that, but I am so looking forward to.
I don't like it either because
to this game.
It needs to be a phrase.
Yeah, it doesn't have that same sort of gravitas,
It's die another day. Diamonds are forever. From Russia with love, and then we got the Last Light. Awesome, that's great.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't have its own sort of personality that goes along with it. But one thing, speaking of the cars, as we watch this car, they did a lot. So there have been some other creators that had a chance to go to the studio and see some behind closed doors stuff and get some more information. And one of the things that came out is this sense of realism that they intend and authenticity that they want to put in the game. One of those things, and we'll talk about others as well, but one of them is vehicles. So whenever you see a Jaguar, as you said here, with whatever model this is, or when you see an Aston Martin, or when you see an Aston Martin or whatever, they took that car and they took it on a track with microphones, all this stuff, and they recorded the sounds of that car. And they
Gran Turismo.
Yes. Yeah. So they wanted to get the authentic feel for each of these vehicles. Each of these, they also have like Omega, the watch brand Omega. They have that watch brand. They didn't try to make it some thing. They went with all these like notable James Bond brands or vices or whatever, and they went with that the authentic feel for that. So they really went above and beyond. And one of the things, and we'll kind of see a little bit of it as we go through the playthrough here on this mission. And this is one thing, because it's one of those things that you don't really notice it until you do, and then whenever something happens that makes you notice it, you can't unsee it. And that is, as they have, obviously they're doing a lot of motion capture for this game. So, they always put the crazy suits on these people. They got all the dots on them, and then they go through the motion capture process. Well, one thing that they do is if they are, handling things, they'll usually give them like pool noodles or something like that, some foam representation of this thing. So that if they're like, oh, in this scene, I'm holding a fire extinguisher, so they'll give you like a, something that they'll hold while they're doing the motion capture, but that usually doesn't have any weight. So they don't handle it as though it actually weighs anything. And the last time I can remember noticing this, even though it was a phenomenal game, and that was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And the thing there was one time they were holding like a solid gold statue, and he was waving it around like it was a stack of Post-it notes. I mean, just, nothing to it, like that thing should weigh like 30 pounds, but they were just waving it around. So here also we should point out while we're doing this. So James Bond sitting by the car, now he sees this bellhop just suspiciously toss some luggage over and throw a cigarette. So now he's
for the record, his mission was to never leave the parking lot, but in typical Bond fashion, he is. And
yes.
Right now, he's actually being told in the radio to stay by the car, even though he's telling them he witnessed the bellhop. So this, to me, this whole segment is very Hitman. And of course, the game is developed by IOI that did Hitman. So,
but this and this
IO
is
Interactive, yeah.
And this is, but in saying that though, this is exactly what we wanted to see. Like we want to see the evolution, and we will see a lot of evolution to that formula here. But this is the core thing that we were so excited about, is to get that Hitman DNA in here. Because and this is something that I do want to point out. Let's see if I can hit it. Hold on. So, because it's fast. Okay, boom. Pause it. Because they immediately whiz by this in this demo, and I wanted to make a point that we stopped here, because this is another thing that you had pointed out whenever we kind of talked about in a previous episode. We talked about our wish list items, and this is one of the wish list items right here. Now, how deep it goes, I don't know, but you said specifically like dialogue trees. Well, here we go. We have dialogue trees. Now, granted, it's more of it's not super deep. It's some stuff where you can maybe get a little bit more information or something like that. But it is at least options, dialogue trees that we don't get. And as you see here, one of the things that's grayed out is present press badge. So obviously, this is one of the other things that goes to the multitude of ways.
Oh shit! You missed something.
Yeah, this is one of the multitude of ways where you can achieve these things and get through in multiple ways. So you could obviously somehow acquire a press badge in order to get inside to continue following this bellhop. One of the things I also do wonder is if you can get to the luggage that was tossed over, because I would be curious as to what it was. Like, were they just discarding something, or was that something where they tossed it over so it could be picked up by someone else later? I'm curious if you could actually hit that before you start trailing the bellhop. But
I like the fact that he gets turned down. Like you couldn't just go. I like the fact that he's being stopped here so that he has to start demonstrating improvisation, which is a very Bond-esque skill. And then, you're able to look around. It looks like they have some kind of eagle vision scan thing, which is cool with the open window. So now it's all a matter of walking around, seeing what's at your disposal as far as resources go. So that part, I'm definitely into.
And here you can see it highlighted. So he just did this little like ping. So you can see kind of like highlighted these various sort of things that he's taking note of that he could utilize. So he did this little sort of like ping thing, and then it highlighted that pipe yellow. So, like, okay, I can interact with that. I could use that. So here he's looking at a pile of leaves and see if maybe he could use something there. But back to some of the details that they put in here. Speaking of what he's doing right now, I will touch on that, and then I'll get back to the weight. But they mentioned that their objective that they work towards throughout the entirety of the game is anytime you have something like this where you have like something that you need to do, someplace you need to access, or something like that, where you have these points that you have to figure out, that you have at least 5 to 6 ways to accomplish it.
Yeah, which I think is a lesson they obviously learned from Hitman. You look at any Hitman mission, and I'm going to pardon the pun, there's 47 ways to do everything in there. And this was, now, some of this, to me, this part right here was a little suspect, that he wouldn't have got seen hopping over this wall. And I get it, but it's also a game, and they've got to make it, functional. So I do like it, the way they're doing this.
Yeah, and so back to the weighted situation, is basically everything that they handle is weighted. So whenever they were doing the motion capture for whatever they were handling in the game, it's weighted. And just like the vehicles, it's weighted to the actual weight of the item that they are handling. So if they are handling a gun, the weight is the exact model of, like, it's the same gun. Like if they're waving a gun around and they're mocapping that, they're waving around a gun that's weighted to the precise weight of that specific model of gun. And so you don't have that situation where there's a 30-pound, solid gold idol that's being wielded around as though it's a Stanley mug, So and like I said, it's one of those things that you don't usually notice, but then whenever you see something like that, it really does kind of break your immersion a little bit. And it's kind of disappointing. So they are determined to not have those breaks, because obviously there's going to be some stuff here that's a bit over the oh, hold on. Apologize, guys. I had a phone call. I'll get back to that momentarily.
Well, I'd like to get, whenever you're ready. Well, I was just going to say, from a Bond lore standpoint, there were plenty of houses in the movies, mansions, estates, or whatnot, that he had to infiltrate. None of them were this elaborate, but movies and games are two different things. So they're trying to obviously make up for that. But I will say that this is very reminiscent of the estate in From Russia with Love, which is probably my favorite Bond movie. It also had Robert Quinn in it or Robert Shaw in it from Jaws, that played Quint in Jaws. So excellent role from him as the villain. But as you look around, I mean, this is beautiful. It reminds me of the Paris mission a little bit from Hitman 3. But walking around here, and it's like every single thing in here is interactable. I mean, it's, I don't know what he picked up just a second ago there, but you got somebody over there bent over by the door. He probably could have interacted with that guy and affected some type of impact on his infiltration of this house. But, just look at all the people going about whatever their routine is for this mission. Now, one thing I had a question about is there really wasn't a waypoint for this piece right here, because I got to tell you, and when I play games like this, I always work left to right. I would have taken a left there and not come to this balcony unless the game forced me to the balcony. But so obviously this is a set piece where the bellhop's walking by during the main. It looks like a chess match going on down there. But I do love, like, everybody either sees him or recognizes him or dismisses him in a natural way, and just the facial expressions on the faces of everyone in the mansion. I mean, it's crazy how much detail they've went into when it comes to just the ambience of the location that you are in. So I think that part is cool. Welcome back, Mr. Mason. Do you have any comments on this area?
No, I apologize, guys. It's been a busy week, and that was a call I had to take. I apologize, but you got the dulcet tones of Jay Neal. But I do want to point out the lower left-hand corner of the screen here. You see the battery and the chemical. Did you talk about that already?
I have not. I was actually, my thing was, and for me, dude, this is less about being a game and more about being a Bond fan. I will tell you, I will be approaching this as a Bond fan, not as a game fan. I know that sounds weird because I'm a huge gamer, but
as we get later into this mission, I think we have like a beautiful joining of those two things where like the gamer and the Bond fan, like where those are really, really, really going to play together. So if you haven't seen this yet, hold on tight, because this is like, so we've seen some very standard, refined Hitman elements. That's what we're seeing here is IO Interactive's Hitman evolution here. Okay, so we've jumped. Something's happened. Like, this is where we missed the whole build up to this, right? They've just cut towards
right before he busts out the window in a 1975 Aston Martin Vantage that they only made 3,500 of. Yeah, didn't really like that scene all that much, but okay.
Yeah. So real quick. So in the lower left-hand corner that you saw there's a battery and like a chemical symbol.
Yes.
So those are basically the two things that your Bond will have access to some of his gadgets. So some of those will use like battery power, like a taser or something like that, and others will be like, something that makes somebody nauseous or sleepy, like you saw as he was trying to get in. And so as you use those different tools, your meter, for each one, whether you use energy or chemicals, will lower, and then throughout levels and throughout the missions, you'll be able to grab those elements to refill those meters. But here's
cool.
one where
I love the minimalistic approach to this game, dude, without crazy bunch of HUD features all over. I just love it.
And I bet there probably is a way where you can get those HUDs if you really need them to support. But I would, because a lot of games will have it where it's like, oh, there's the HUD and there's the less HUD. I don't know. Like, a lot of times they will make the HUD the standard, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they tried to make this mode like the absolute most minimal HUD you can get, the standard, because this is the most cinematic. This feels like a movie chase.
Once I learned that, and this is pretty standard for me, but once I learned the controls to a game, like when I play Ghost Recon or even I turn the HUDs off. I want the full cinematic immersion experience. You know what I'm saying? So for me, this is awesome.
And there's certainly ways to do that as well. There's also like beautiful mergings of the two, like a Red Dead where it only kind of comes up when it's needed, or something like that. Like, I love the way that they're doing this. And this, again, just gives me Uncharted vibes. Like the Uncharted, whenever they would have like these big scenes where there was a chase or something going on, where these massive scenes that look like, big budget Hollywood stunt sequences. I mean, this is all about that. And, this is IO Interactive's. Have they ever had driving in a game? Because I know they don't have it in Hitman.
Well, I think you have to go back to early Hitman and realize that it wasn't always IO Interactive. So some of their games,
but this is IO Interactive's game engine. I'm just saying, for their first time, if this is their first time, looks amazing.
Yeah, this is great, and I think you nailed it when you were talking about what they did with the cars. And I wouldn't doubt that they probably got a hold of Kaz Yamauchi from Gran Turismo and go, "Hey, man, how do you do your realistic car thing? We need to do it for this James Bond game." Because it sounds like exactly what Kaz did. But, dude, this is... And it's a phenomenal driving sequence, and you can see that you've got drift, you've got a car that has understeer if you freaking try to go too fast into a turn. As a car guy, I got to tell you, this is pretty simmy.
And I love, because we've talked about it on the show before, because this used to be a big thing in like especially Need for Speed back in the day, but we see damage. We see damage on this vehicle. Back in the day, like, you would have all these licenses for these different vehicle manufacturers, but you would never, like, no matter how many wrecks you got into, you would never see so much as even a scuff on the waxy, shiny paint of that vehicle, because they didn't want to give the impression that their vehicle was weak, or it's like, now I'm glad we're past that. So like, you can see damage on the vehicle, looks very cinematic. Like you said, you got the power slides, which are always, pulse pounding and crank a lot of energy. So this is where we get to see the evolved gunplay.
So now, I didn't like that part. And I'll tell, and it's just really stupid and very Bondy.
But you didn't like this, the part that we're watching right now, or the gunplay?
No. When she handed him, I thought for sure she'd hand him a Walther. He got out of his Aston Martin.
Well, we do know that Walther will come to play, because that's one of the bonus options if you pre-order is that golden Walther. So we know that Walther will come into play.
But he just got handed what looked like a Glock 40 So, yeah, I wish he would have got handed.
It's also revealed.
That's really stupid. I get it. I mean, that's dumb. But
Well,
I wish he would have got handed.
I think there actually is a reason for it, though, because as we come to find out later in this mission, you find out that you are working for different agencies. She is not with MI6.
Yeah, she's DGSC, which is the actual real life, British Secret Service, type of deal.
So I think that's the reason, is because that was her service weapon. And, I think his will likely be a Walther. So here we have the evolved gameplay. So if you've played...
he's not even supposed to be here right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. If you've played Hitman, you know how... I mean, it was serviceable. Yeah. But you didn't want to get into a firefight.
There was a 98% chance if you were in this firefight right here in Hitman 3, you were going to die.
Yeah.
Your mission was going to end. Oh, dude, we got to talk.
Here we go.
The intuitive melee is without a doubt my favorite thing.
Yeah, we can pause it right here.
And I'm not even big on melee. I'd rather shoot him, but yeah, he stole the gun from the guy.
Yeah,
his was out.
So this breaks into a couple of things, and this is one thing that you specifically mentioned in one of the previous episodes, where we were so impressed with the trailer, the cinematic trailer that we saw, and we speculated on what it might be like, the things that we wanted to see. And one of the things that you pointed out, where we kind of talked about the things that would service 007 well from the Hitman DNA, and so far all those things are carrying over. All the things that we wanted, that we thought this would be great, those things are there. But one of the things that you pointed out was that Hitman is very calculated. The whole thing about Hitman is, as much as you can, plan it out. To the point that in Hitman, you can actually say, I want this sniper rifle in the suitcase on that bell tower, and you can plant things. Whereas 007 is more fly by the seat of his pants, by the skin of his teeth. And so you wanted to have this sort of just make use of whatever you have around you, and boom, we have it.
Yeah,
he's stealing weapons. We'll see even crazier stuff later in this video, but yeah, we got to see that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to it as far as?
No, man. You nailed it. But I really want to hit up when we talk about ballistics and the way these. Of course, we're not getting to hear it, but every shotgun blast, every pistol shot, every 3-round burst on an SMG, it all sounds legit. It's very punchy.
Love that.
One thing, I love that piece right here. And then I like this part right here. And then there was something I wanted to say before we even got to this part.
Do you want me to pause it?
But sure. So okay. I know there's the ADD, OCD crowd's going to go nuts because the first part of that mission was very slow, very calculated, but it was also very James Bond. And one thing I mentioned to Mason last night via text message was that I love the deliberate slowness to the first part, so that when we get to this part, it pops and it's very cinematic, and it's a James Bond movie, and it's got his core and his essence. And this is where it ceased being Hitman and became it. And I think that was part of IOI's, probably their plan, was like, we're showing you our DNA and then how we've evolved it. Which I think is a really cool thing.
I mean, this is not just an evolution. This is a quantum leap from their Hitman stuff. This gunplay, and even then, like the CQC stuff that you would get into in Hitman was very brief. It was like, oh, boom, boom, crank, and that's it, right? Whereas here, he's stripping weapons. We've got, we had him push somebody off. Here we had him like push off the cliff with somebody landing on top of them. Yeah. Like the level of interaction there is crazy. The running and gunning is just not something that you can do in Hitman. Like you can take cover, you can do all that, but it doesn't chain together like this. It just does not work.
And you're about to see him run out of ammo in this assault rifle and do something you've probably never seen in a game. By the way, your pause screen timing right there was legit.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That's a great one, dude.
Yeah, nice job.
Also, I wanted to touch on one thing, because you and the game director, who's also the president of IOI, the head guy there. He's the bald guy that introduces. I can't think of his name. It's very
Darren Shakar.
Or no, Hannick, something like what? I don't know. He's the bald guy.
Okay.
But anyway, he said the way he put it was that it breathes. The game breathes. So it's basically the same thing you're saying, where you have moments where, okay, now we can take a breath. Now we gain context. Now we get some story beats. Now we learn, and then there's times when it's this and stuff's blowing up and you're jumping over, railings, and you're landing on top of people. Stuff has gone wrong. And this was the sequence that I love. Also, this was one before we got to this point where he's just like shooting at people on, like, the gamer in us. We all know it. Anytime we see a red barrel in a video game, we know what that red barrel does. We know. So whenever he's like shooting at the people that are like on the railing that are above these red tanks, it's just shoot the tank. Just shoot the tank. And finally he did. All right, let me get that playing. There we go. So we get the beautiful whole thing blowing up. Excuse me about that. So we got the very cinematic car explosion after 5 shots.
There he threw the rifle.
And I do love that once you're out of bullets, that you can use your rifles as like a distraction or something like that, or as a melee weapon. That's great.
And then just the intuitive slide across the hood right to hit the other guy.
Yeah, we got some like slow motion focus. Also, speaking of details, so one of the things that we pointed out whenever we talked about this previously, and we'd watched the first trailer, and we had made mention of the scar on James Bond's cheek. Yeah, and I had pointed out, we're like, this will be our first time seeing a scarred James Bond. What is that? Does that come into play? Does anybody ask him about it? Maybe not quite to the Joker level of like, you want to know I got these scars, but I don't know. It's just an interesting little piece to it. And obviously there's a story behind that scar, but that is actually yet another piece of dedication to authenticity that IOI has, because Sir Ian Fleming, way back in the day, had a painting commissioned where he worked with the artist to make a painting in the likeness of James Bond as Ian Fleming had in his head. And so they did this painting, and in that painting there was that scar on James Bond's cheek. Like, Ian Fleming specifically had that scar in mind, so they put it on their James Bond. And so here we have, this is obviously like super Mission Impossible vibes. This is a Tom Cruise wet dream right here. Tom Cruise would want to do this. He'd want to do it for real, and he'd want to do it every day for 4 months.
Yeah.
Until it was perfect.
And he'd want all the other actors that were in the scene with him up there doing it with him. Yes.
Again, just a level of set pieces that we're going to see here. We're getting just insane here. This is one thing that does crack me up, though. So you obviously just had this massive rush to get on. You just had a gunfight on top of this plane. You just pulled somebody out of this manhole to throw them up, and now you're in here, and everybody's just like, yeah, so what are we doing? We landed by 7? Yeah, you want to get some food? Like, no, like everybody's just like, just chill. Like, nothing happened, but very video game. Video game.
They wouldn't have heard anything on the roof of that plane. That it would have been so loud. That would have been. But still, I get your point. I always hated that in other games when you're like in one area that the next area heard what you were doing, and you walk in there and they're all like, action.
Yeah.
Like they were on pause until you came through the door.
Yeah, and
here
we go.
This is a cool piece right here.
So in this, they actually talk about it I actually had someone talk about it I believe it was Luke Stevens when I was watching him. So you're basically able to hack this with your watch. So he's hacked the plane, and he's controlling the banking. So he's saying, oh, I want it to bank this way. I want it to bank this way. So he's actually voluntarily, he's using those. They're not just obstacles that he's avoiding, these crates. He's voluntarily utilizing those crates. He's like, oh, there's somebody there. Let's bank this way so that the crates hit them. So you're in control. whenever you hack it. So that'll be a thing that will be utilized at multiple points throughout the game, is this hacking of technology and you being able to control it to some degree. But yeah, again, this all screams like just this mix of Mission Impossible and 007 and the best of video games right here.
This is great too. This whole scene.
Yeah, the mission objective now is get a parachute. You're in midair, find a parachute. Dude, this is going to be and this is the first mission. So if they keep this level of if they have 3, 4, maybe even 5 massive set pieces like this throughout the course of this game, dude. Like just the replayability of just wanting to have that sort of adrenaline, dump again would just be great to like kind of go through these like I keep bringing up the Uncharted set pieces, how those never get old.
Yeah, because I'd really like multiple ways. I'd like to do one where I'm just not James Bond, just very American, just walking up, shooting shit, walking in there.
Yep. And there we go. Yeah. So that is, and then there will be a second part here where we can get a little bit more detail and see a little bit more. So there's the actor. There is our James Bond, Patrick Gibson. So there's the bald guy. That's the guy I believe that said it breathes whenever he mentioned the game. So let's go on here. There we go. All right. So here we have James Bond at this party and looking very, very cool and confident. Oh, that's another thing as well. The decision to make it modern day, for whatever reason, they had apparently gotten some pushback on that, and they gave their reasoning for it, and I'm like, well, that's the reason I assumed. It just seems natural. And they said, well, every James Bond property has always been a product of its
modern
time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always been if it was made in the 1950s, it's
the
1950s. If it's made in the 70s, it's the 70s. Like it's always been a product of its time, and they saw no reason to change that. And so I'm all I was like, that's just so I never thought like, oh, this should be this era because it's never been that way. It's never been that way. It's always been modern. The only time that they did anything that was a game that you had mentioned was whenever they did the From Russia with Love game, but obviously that was because
it was in From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
Which was way, that was obviously the 60s.
Okay, here we go. So once again, we have dialogue trees. You have dialogue choices.
A lot of people don't realize, even though Daniel Craig was in the last 4 or 5 movies, Casino Royale was actually Ian Fleming's first James Bond book in the chronology. And obviously,
So it was the first one chronologically, but wasn't the first one that he wrote?
It was the first one that he wrote, and it was chronologically.
Okay.
He wrote them in order, but yeah.
See, I've never read the 007 books. I've never read any of the actual Ian Fleming novels.
They're really good.
And so here we go. We can kind of see them sort of showing various ways that you can accomplish a particular task. So he's found a camera. Each of these and each of those things that we just saw, he found a camera, but he found them in different areas. One was in a bag, one was on a seat, that kind of thing. So there will always be multiple ways to accomplish the various tasks. And another thing that's like a carryover from Hitman, and I think it's a wise carryover, is this is kind of like a compromise between the Hitman and the still out there, 007, but still more grounded than Hitman. So in Hitman, you knock somebody over the back of the head, steal their clothes, do nothing about your face, and nobody can recognize who you are, right? That's you're a master of disguise. Except there will always be people that would be able to see, be able to know that you weren't who you said you were. Here, instead of like taking someone's clothes, and who knows, there might be times where you do, but in what they're showing us here, it's their bluffing system, where you just walk up and you can bluff people, which they'll do here, where he basically pretends to be like museum security and tries to direct people towards a particular target. But there will always be some other people that can't be bluffed. So just like in Hitman, where you try to dress like a waiter, and then you go to you can't walk past the butler in that suit because the butler knows all the waiters and he knows you're not a waiter. So just like here, there's people that you can bluff, but there will be people that will be highlighted and called out that you won't be able to bluff because they, maybe if you're trying to masquerade as museum security and you're trying to bluff your way into making them think you're museum security, this guy knows all the security people. He knows you're not museum security. So that sort of DNA, but more refined, of master of disguise to bluffing system still comes across, and I think it makes sense.
Also, a big Hitman callback is the fact that they showed you doing the cameraman angle, which was a callback to the Marrakesh mission in Hitman 3, where you sneak in with the press team.
And that was one of the best missions they had too, by the way.
Oh my God, man. Yeah. Was it a bull that you dropped from the ceiling?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
That was fantastic.
And
I remember laughing my butt off.
And even here we've seen, I mean, just throughout this whole thing, we also see that where there's clearly things where they're okay. So here we go, boom, there you go. So you got this thing, and we see multiple ways, and they'll show multiple ways of distracting these people or whatever to get through here. That's what we're going to see here. It's playing the same sequence, and you're going to do it different ways. But that's another thing where we have the DNA of Hitman, and it gets carried over to here where for particular objectives, there's going to be things, like we said, 5 to 6 ways at least to accomplish that objective. Okay, find a camera. Okay, I found the camera, whatever. But on top of that, there's just going to be all this other stuff that you're still going to be able to play with. It's not necessarily there because it's going to be something that they intended for you to utilize to accomplish an objective. It's just going to be there because they're like, let's see what they can do with it. And I mean, we'll see some of that stuff here, but there's going to be a lot of that stuff at play here. And I would be shocked, and this is another thing that we talked about before, if they did not have a similar system to Hitman where you will replay these missions in a non-campaign related thing where you have different missions that get brought out that you'll have to accomplish, but it'll be the same scenario. So here we go. He's now been busted. He's gotten caught, can't fake his way out of it, so we get some CQC, which was way better than Hitman. And now here we go. We got a little bit of Sleeping Dogs. So this reminded me of Sleeping Dogs, where now you're utilizing the environment. So he's taking people, he just sent them through doors. So that environmental interaction that Sleeping Dogs has, that a bit of that DNA is here. So he's swinging pool cues. He's about to throw billiard balls. I mean, I love this.
Yeah, so it actually reminded me of a game that was actually shit, but had really great hand-to-hand mechanics, which was Bourne Identity, oddly enough.
I never played that game.
Yeah, so the hand-to-hand was right from the Matt Damon movies. The rest of the game, terrible.
Awful.
But man, you loved doing it. You absolutely loved getting into, like, you would just do it on purpose.
And
you weren't even trying to hide.
They also pointed out here, so now they're talking about the weapons, because they just pointed out, like, unlike Hitman, where, you could always employ weapons, unless there's certain missions where you couldn't do that, but you could always employ weapons. Maybe you got some, demerits or whatever. But here they basically mentioned, like, hey, whenever there's no other way, or there is clearly intent to kill Bond, they will then issue a license to kill. So basically implying that you will have to restrain yourself until you are given permission to kill people. And then you can start busting out some of the more lethal tools. So we've seen,
like in Splinter Cell, when you get your 5th freedom card, which is the right to kill.
And here we go. We've seen, some explosive, like some mines. You got to see a laser from the watch used to blind somebody. There used to drop the chandelier. We're seeing a bunch of different methods of mayhem here. So again, that bullet time, sort of like slowed down focus mode, that's going to be fun. Okay, there we go. Just threw something at the guy. Like, I'm so excited for this, because it's also, I think it's going to scratch the Hitman itch as well. It's not one of these things where, let's say they make this game and then people are going to be like, man, you know what? I'm missing Hitman though. I don't think you're going to. I think this is going to scratch that itch for Hitman as well. Yeah. I mean,
and it's, for me too, I know I bring this game up. We did a whole part of an episode on it, but very Alpha Protocol-ish. It really is in a lot of ways.